Okay, picture this. It's February 1943, right in the thick of the air war over Europe. You're miles above the ground, flying through an absolute nightmare of anti-aircraft flak. A B-17 bomber called the Southern Comfort has just been completely shredded by enemy fire. I mean, we're talking a shattered nose, a destroyed rudder, and engines just spewing oil and flames. It was so bad that the pilot, Lieutenant Hugh Ashcraft, got on the radio and delivered this literally chilling message to his crew. Those who want to, please pray.
And the crazy thing is, it wasn't just the Southern Comfort. The sheer physical devastation of these returning bombers was almost impossible to believe. Just look at the famous B-17 known as the All-American. After a mid-air collision with a German fighter, its tail was nearly severed, the left stabilizer was entirely gone, and the fuselage was sliced almost all the way through. It was basically held together by just a couple of small frame pieces. The fact that these massive machines were miraculously still flying and limping back to base, it set up this incredible life-or-death historical mystery.
Welcome to The Explainer. This is episode 41, coming in on a wing and a prayer. Today, we are taking a fascinating journey, starting with those bullet-riddled bombers of World War II and zooming all the way forward to uncover the hidden casualties of our modern legal system. Let's get right into it.
So back during the war, the military brass was looking at the visual evidence of these heavily damaged planes returning home. They're looking at the shattered noses, the destroyed rudders, the fuselages ripped completely open, and naturally, they want to keep more bombers in the sky. So they look at the data, the literal bullet holes on the planes that made it back, and they assume they need to add heavy armor exactly where those holes were the most concentrated. I mean, makes total sense, right? Reinforce the parts taking the most damage.
But then, a statistician named Abraham Wald enters the picture. And what's really interesting about this slide is his totally counterintuitive stroke of genius. He looked at the exact same data as the commanders, but came to the exact opposite conclusion. He realized those bullet holes didn't show where the planes were the weakest. They showed where a bomber could be shot and actually survive the flight home. His revolutionary idea was to look at the pristine, untouched areas on the surviving planes, like the engines and the cockpit. He told the military, hey, add armor there, because the planes hit in those spots simply never made it back.
Wald basically saved the military from a deadly cognitive trap called survivorship bias. You've probably heard of this. It's the logical error of focusing only on the people or things or data that made it past a selection process while entirely ignoring the ones that didn't. If they only focused on the survivors, the military would have armored their planes completely in vain. Wald proved that the real truth of a situation is almost always found in the invisible data of the non-survivors.
Now you might be wondering, why on earth are we talking about World War II aviation today? Well, because this exact same statistical distortion is happening right now, completely warping our understanding of modern innovation. When we look at the health of technological progress today, we are suffering from massive survivorship bias. We only see the highly visible corporate survivors, these massive portfolios navigating the system. But we're completely missing the down planes, the independent inventors and startups who are quietly erased by the modern patent system.
So the crucial point here is understanding the modern anti-aircraft flak that today's lone inventors are flying through. It's known as efficient infringement. This is a calculated strategy where heavily capitalized corporations deliberately infringe on the patents of smaller creators. Why? Because they know independent inventors simply cannot afford the multi-million-dollar legal costs it takes to actually defend their property rights in court.
And these big companies hide this infringement inside incredibly dense webs of overlapping intellectual property. Just let this number sink in for a second. 250,000. That staggering figure is the estimated number of active, overlapping patents covering just a single modern smartphone. That is enough to make your head spin. Economists call this a patent thicket. And let's be clear, it is not a competitive moat. It's a legal minefield designed to stifle research and block viable, independent inventions from ever seeing the light of day.
These dense webs essentially act as heavy armor for the corporate giants, allowing them to survive the thicket while blocking true competition. Take AbbVie, for example. They filed around 247 patents on their drug Humira, many after it was already on the market purely to block cheaper generic competitors. Or Google, who famously dropped $12.5 billion on Motorola Mobility primarily just to scoop up 17,000 patents to use as a defensive shield. When the median cost of a single major U.S. patent infringement suit is $5 million, small inventors literally don't stand a chance. They're bankrupted before they even realize they're in a fight.
But here's the kicker. The federal courtroom isn't even the most dangerous part of the sky for an independent inventor anymore. Back in 2011,
The America Invents Act established an administrative tribunal called the Patent Trial and Appeal Board, or the PTAB. Now, this was originally pitched as a quick, cost-effective way to weed out low-quality patents, but it quickly morphed into a weapon. By 2013, the former chief judge of the Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit gave the PTAB a nickname that has haunted it ever since, the Patent Death Squad. It acts as the ultimate financial attrition machine.
And honestly, the nickname is earned. Independent inventor organizations point to this absolutely staggering statistic: 84%. That is the historical rate at which the PTAB invalidates or cancels at least one challenged claim. Small creators are arguing that this massive invalidation rate has utterly devastated their portfolios, frequently wiping out their entire life's work in just a single administrative swoop.
And we really have to look at the financial reality of this process. An inventor routinely has to spend between $500,000 and a cool $1 million in legal fees just to defend a property right they already own against a corporate challenge at the PTAB. Think about that for a second. That's not the cost of researching or developing a groundbreaking new product. That is literally just the toll required to survive the tribunal. Which brings up a great question. What are these surviving corporate giants actually fighting over when they drag each other into these disputes? Well, 80% of the irreparable harm found in patent litigation is pure loss of market share to larger competitors. This system has totally devolved. It's really no longer about protecting foundational, world-changing breakthroughs from rogue geniuses. Instead, it's mostly about massive entities fiercely defending their market share and battling over price erosion through endless litigation.
To really grasp the human cost here, we need to look at the story of Zaxcom. Glenn Sanders and Howard Stark literally won an Emmy Award for inventing digital wireless microphone technology. We're not talking about some flimsy, low-quality idea here. This was celebrated, industry-proven tech. But when massive competitors infringed on their work, those competitors simply went and petitioned the PTAB. And because giant corporations have the resources to file multiple overlapping petitions, they eventually won, invalidating Zaxcom's patents a full 14 years after they were originally issued. 14 years?
As the research powerfully summarizes, this system has shifted from protecting breakthroughs to defending corporate market share. And a huge reason for this comes down to structural rules. You see, the PTAB uses much lower standards of proof than federal district courts. A regular court requires clear and convincing evidence to invalidate a patent. But the PTAB? They only require a preponderance of the evidence. This structurally favors the heavily capitalized challengers who can just afford to play the long, expensive game of litigation attrition.
Which brings us right back to Abraham Wald and those B-17 bombers. The independent inventors, the nimble startups, the radical pioneers, they are the missing planes. They are the invisible casualties, because surviving the patent system today is heavily correlated with having elite, massively capitalized law firms in your corner. Small entities simply lack the financial armor to survive the flak. And because we only measure the health of our innovation ecosystem by looking at the corporate survivors who make it back to base, we are utterly blind to the devastation happening to independent creators.
So, we've uncovered how the invisible bullet holes of survivorship bias are hiding the true, devastating costs of our modern patent system. We've seen that defending your own idea can cost $1 million, and we know that incredible innovation used to thrive completely outside of this corporate battlefield. So I want to leave you with this final thought. If we continue to design a system that only protects the corporate giants who can afford the heavy armor, how many world-changing ideas, life-saving cures, and technological leaps are we leaving unseen at the bottom of the ocean?